Welcome to Beyond Boredom. I am thrilled to have you here today. I have got so much information to share with you over the next hour because I really want to support and help you with your teenager at school and ensure that they are actually thriving in English class. They're being challenged, they're not flying under the radar, they're reaching their full potential, and they're not falling through the cracks. How do we stop that from happening? Short of being a fly on the wall in class, this will get you so close to the action because the questions that I have got to share with you today are going to cut straight to the heart of what your child is achieving in class and how they can improve, and how, as parents, you can support them at home as well. Let's get started. So, you may have only just come across me this morning or maybe yesterday, and before then, you'd never heard of me. So, my name's Francesca, and I am delighted to have you here. I am first and foremost a teacher. I trained in teaching, in secondary school teaching, over 20 years ago now, and I taught in classrooms around the Southern Hemisphere. You could probably tell by my accent that I'm a Southern Hemisphere girl. I spent the first 10 years teaching in the classroom, boots on the ground. And then the following 10 years, I spent developing and writing resources and supporting teachers globally, all around the world. So I'm a business owner as well. I developed a brand called Teach Aid English Literature, and I spent 10 years reading and writing and looking through all the different curriculums to create resources that teachers could use in their own classrooms that I knew that had worked really well in my own classrooms. And I wanted to share that knowledge and I wanted to pass it on to other teachers. And I am so privileged to be able to continue to support teachers all around the world and really be at the forefront of what is up to date in terms of teaching pedagogy and what the current trends are in the classrooms around the world. So, welcome, my friend. I am thrilled to have you here. And let's get into why you might be here. Because I know that you have a teenager at home that you are either worried about that they're falling through the cracks in class, or you're not getting the information that you need from the teacher, or you think that your child could be challenged a little bit more. They've got more potential in them and they might not be reaching what they're capable of. So, this masterclass is for you if you're worried about their academic performance, if you're concerned that your child is not performing to their potential in English, and you want to find effective ways to support their academic growth. This masterclass will provide actionable strategies and insights. I have got so many strategies for you that I think you are going to come away with your head buzzing with possibilities and ideas. So make sure you've got a piece of paper and a pen. This masterclass is also perfect for you if you're concerned about a lack of engagement with your teenager. So if your teenager seems disengaged or uninterested in their schoolwork, this session that I'm going to share with you today will help you discover methods to reignite their passion for learning through creative and critical thinking exercises. And I'll talk more about critical thinking a little further on in this webinar because it's a super important skill that we all have to some level or degree. But with teenagers, critical thinking is the key that unlocks their ability to write fluently and critically, which is going to score them huge brownie points in English exams. So, this masterclass is also for you if you're uncertain about progress. If you feel like you're in the dark about your child's academic progress in school and in class, and want to understand how they are really doing in their English class, this webinar will guide you on how to gain clear insights from your teenagers' teachers and track their improvement. And it doesn't have to be an English class, this can apply to any class at high school. So, no doubt your teenager will have certain subjects that they do really well in, and then they'll have other subjects that they don't do so well in. And sometimes it's quite hard to find out why they are not doing as well in some subjects. And so, this webinar, you can apply these questions and you can apply these strategies to any other class as well as English. So, the theme of this particular webinar will focus on English because English is a core subject that is assessed widely across curriculums that every student to some level will need to be able to adapt to and to master. Now, this masterclass might be for you if you're struggling to provide support at home as well. If you're finding it challenging to offer constructive feedback without discouraging your child, then this masterclass will teach you how to provide balanced, supportive, and motivational feedback without upsetting the apple cart. So don't worry, I've got your back. I've got some techniques and some strategies that you can apply at home so that you're not going to cause World War III. And this masterclass is also for you if you're looking for better communication. So, if you want to improve your communication with your child's teachers, quite often we might only hear from them when it's those routine parent teacher interviews. But in between those times, how do we maintain a really constructive and supportive communication channel with teachers? Well, I'll show you how today. I'm going to show you some practical questions that you can ask and some tips for that effective parent teacher interaction. And also, if you are dealing with stress and pressure at home with your teenager, if they're really worried about exams coming up or an important test or an assignment, if they're feeling overwhelmed by the academic pressures, then this session will introduce some stress management techniques that you can share with your teenager at home and some ways to foster a growth mindset to help them cope and thrive with whatever challenging task comes their way in class and in school. And finally, if you aim to encourage your child to take more responsibility for their own learning and develop strong study habits, because remember, at the end of the day, as parents, it's very tempting to hover over our children and complete the assignments for them just to get them done and get them out through the door. But but we're not helping our children if that's all we're doing is providing the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. We need to be ensuring that our teenagers have got the skills and the adaptability and the motivation and the independence to be able to manage their own time properly, manage their own study schedules properly, and manage their workload. So, this masterclass will provide strategies to support independent learning and self assessment. Sound good? Okay, great. I love this quote. Empowering our teenagers to take charge of their learning journey, fostering open communication, and creating a supportive environment at home are the keys to unlocking their full potential. Together, we can nurture resilient, confident, and independent thinkers who are prepared for the challenges of tomorrow. I love that quote. It's one of my mottos or one of my mission statement focuses. And I think that we need to have that balance between providing support, scaffolded support that we give our teenagers, and also empowering them with the skills that they can have independence to make their own decision making. How do we do that? Well, we do it in English class, as I mentioned previously, by looking at ways that they can effectively express themselves, effectively communicate with other people around them, and effectively understand how other people think and react and look at it in an objective way. So it's not always about taking offense because of what somebody said to you, but looking at the context in which that person was talking to you and having an open mind about other people's beliefs and other people's opinions, and then being able to reply in a very educated and carefully thought through way. That is the ideal for our teenagers. It doesn't always quite land that way, but that's what we always hope that they will come out of high school and face the world with, be ready to face the world with. But facing the world can be hard when you're a teenager because of all the challenges that they are facing. If we were to put ourselves in the shoes of our teenagers for a moment and look at the academic pressures or the academic challenges they're under, then you would see the world in a slightly different perspective. And here's what I mean. So, when I talk about whether or not your child is being challenged in English class, I don't mean are they actually being challenged in an aggressive or standoff way with the teacher. What I mean is, are they being challenged in terms of their academic potential? Are they reaching their full potential in class? Are they going beyond their current knowledge and skills? And are they developing these life skills, resilience, perseverance, and a growth mindset? Because all too often, teenagers can fly under the radar. If they find the subject easy, then they find it boring and then they switch off. And we might not necessarily know that as parents at home. So, how do we find out if our teenagers are being challenged in class? Well, here's what it entails. So, they need to be tackling assignments that require deeper thinking and problem solving. They need to be engaging in analysis, evaluation, and synthesis of information, not just looking at the facts, but looking at the why and the how. They need to be looking at new ideas and exploring different perspectives. So we need to ensure that they're being encouraged to look at new ideas and not just being told the same thing that everybody else believes, but looking at are there other ways, are there other approaches that we can tackle this book from? And raising our expectations as parents and teachers. So, making sure that we are setting higher standards for quality and effort and not just passing any old piece of writing, but really making sure that the content and the work that's being turned in is of a high quality. We also need to ensure that our teenagers are taking responsibility for learning through projects and self study. This is talking about the independence from before and making sure that they are getting the detailed feedback that they need from their teachers and then they can reflect on the learning process. Do reflections happen in class? We need to ensure that there's a certain level of collaborative work, solving problems in groups, involving negotiation and discussion, because it's not always about independent study. And that doesn't happen in life either. There are times when we have to work in with other people and we have to take into account their opinions and their considerations. So collaborative work is really important for challenging a student academically to help them grow academically. And then the time management, which is a big one for teenagers, as we know. So we need to ensure that they're balancing multiple tasks and managing their time effectively, their workload effectively. How do we as parents assist? There are two areas at home that you can really support the work that's going on in school with your teenager: feedback and reflection. So, looking at providing constructive feedback, regular check ins is a great place to start. And you can start with the teacher first to get a sense of what's going on in class, to understand what your teenager is working on and how they feel about their progress. Establish that with the teacher, and some suggested questions that you could ask teachers is, can you give me an overview of the current topics or projects my teenager is working on? Or another question could be, how is my teenager performing relative to class expectations? And then once you've got a sense of how they're going from a teacher's perspective, then you can have those regular check ins with your teenagers. You could ask open ended questions like, what did you learn today? Or what's something interesting you worked on this week? Maybe look at discussing some upcoming projects or tests. And ask, how do you feel about your preparation for the upcoming exam or project? You could inquire about any difficulties that they might be facing. For example, what subjects or topics are you finding most challenging right now, to see if you can provide some empathy for them. Or and celebrate the success. What achievements or progress are you proud of this week? I love positive reinforcement. We do a lot of positive reinforcement at home because it can so often be missed because we are so focused on what needs to be improved. But the successes are just as important. And then don't forget the emotional check in too. Don't forget to address their emotional well-being. How are you feeling about your workload and school in general? You could offer specific praise for effort, progress, and achievements, focusing on what they did well. And we do this all the time at home. We always go out for dinner if one of our children earns a special certificate at school, or we commemorate it in some way. Because teenagers might not necessarily tell you what they're doing well in school, then you could go to the teachers first, and some suggested questions could be, what are some specific strengths or talents you have observed in my teenager? Or another question could be, what positive behaviors or attitudes does my teenager display in class? And then once you've got the feedback from your teacher, then you could turn to your teenager and say things like, I noticed you spent a lot of time studying for your maths test. Great job putting in the effort. Or your hard work on that project really paid off. I'm proud of your dedication. You could recognize progress. So, for example, your writing has improved a lot over the past few weeks. Keep up the great work. Or another one could be, you've become much more confident in your presentations. Well done. And don't forget to praise the specific behaviors too. I'm impressed with how you've approached that difficult problem. Your problem solving skills are really growing. Or another way you could say it is, great job staying organized with your assignments and keeping track of deadlines. So we are really reinforcing the positivity. We are creating a positive correlation between progress and work at school and being academically challenged. And then we turn to the constructive criticism. So this is where, once again, we have to handle with care. We've built our teenagers' confidence up by giving them really supportive feedback. And now we need to look at, how do we provide constructive criticism in a supportive manner by pointing out areas for improvement and offering suggestions on how to address them. So the best place to start with first is with the teachers. Find out, get a lay of the land, find out the areas that you really do need to address with your teenager. And then you can slowly build on that gently. So some questions could be, what specific areas does my teenager need to improve in, obviously? And then what strategies or resources can help my teenager address these areas of improvement? Because remember, the relationship between academic success with your teenager is a two-way street between the teacher and the support that we give our teenagers at home. So you really need to be looking at what you can provide in terms of parental support at home, and what strategies or resources do you need to put in place for your teenager to support them with their homework or with their study for their upcoming exam or with their projects that they've been working on all term, and ensure that they are getting that support at home as well as what they're getting in school. So once you've been to the teacher and you found out the areas that you do need to provide some constructive feedback with your teenager on, then you can encourage some self-assessment. So guide your teenager to assess their work and identify strengths and areas needing improvement. Focus on the positives as well as the negatives, remember. So, for example, once again, start with the teacher. Ask them questions like, how do you encourage students to assess their own work in progress? Because remember, self reflection is a really important part of growth. And teenagers need to understand that one of the best ways that they can improve and one of the best ways that they can be academically challenged is when they have their own self reflection on their own work and they can see the areas themselves that they need to improve in. Because if teachers or if parents are constantly telling them what they need to improve in, they don't understand it themselves, they can't see it themselves, they don't have that self reflection there, then they are going to be resistant. So we need to teach them to be able to self reflect. And we need to find out if they're doing that in class first. Is the teacher doing that with them first? Another question you could ask is, what are some questions or prompts we can use at home to guide our teenagers' self assessment? Once you've got that info from the teacher, then you can turn to your teenagers. And when you are providing constructive criticism, it's a good idea to be specific and supportive. So instead of saying you need to do better in math, you could say, I noticed you're struggling with algebra. Let's look at some extra resources to help you understand it better. Or another example could be, I see you had some trouble with your science project. Maybe we can create a plan together to manage your time better next time. Or another example, your essay has good ideas, but it could be more organized. Let's work on an outline before you start writing next time. So you can see how the heat comes out of the criticism because you're getting on their level and you're saying to them, look, I can see you're struggling with this. How can I help you? What resources can I put in place at home to support you through this part that you're struggling with? And remember, we need to focus on the behavior, not the person. So we need to avoid statements like, you're bad at this. Instead, we can focus our attention on something like this. This particular assignment was challenging. How can we approach it differently next time? So we're also removing the personal pronoun. We're removing the your and we're replacing it with we. We're shouldering the burden with them. We're scaffolding that support for them. We can encourage reflective practices at home too. We've discussed that teenagers may or may not be doing self reflection at school, but we can certainly encourage it at home. So we can encourage reflective questions. Examples could be, what did you find most challenging about this assignment? Or what strategies helped you succeed? So we're beginning to develop those and encourage those self reflection strategies at home. We can also encourage our teenagers to keep learning journals, and it can be a really beautiful gift that we can present them. It doesn't have to be a boring book, it can be something that's treasured, and we can encourage our teenagers to keep a learning journal to document experiences, learnings, and feelings like a diary almost. So, getting into the practice of journaling at a younger age is a great way to be able to foster some of that self independence and those reflective practices. Another really good way is to teach our teenagers to goal set. So we can help them set specific, achievable goals based on their feedback they've had in class and reflection, because by setting goals, they'll naturally start to self reflect anyway. And then we can celebrate the growth with our children. So we can celebrate improvements and the milestones that they do reach to build their confidence and a positive attitude towards learning. All of these together at home is a great way to start encouraging reflective practices. And then through that, we can support their academic habits. Once our teenagers are in the habit of self-reflection, then we can turn to the academic side of things, and we can look at things like creating a study routine for our teenagers. We can establish a consistent study routine that includes time for reflection and time for self-assessment. We can supply resources such as books or online tools or tutoring that can help address areas needing improvement. And then we can also model reflection. We can share our own experiences with reflection and feedback, demonstrating its value to our children. And it can be as simple as having dinner around the table and asking everybody what they thought of the meal and getting the feedback based on that. What would you do differently next time if you're cooking it? Or what did you like that you would do the same next time? And then point out to our children or our teens that this is a type of self-reflection. It happens naturally. It happens all the time. But it also means it's a really great way for improvement. That's how we improve, by self-reflecting. Pointing those examples out in the real world can make it really relevant to teenagers about why it's important to self-reflect with their academic studies. But it's also important to look out for the symptoms if your teenager is switching off in class, because a lot of the time they are struggling in class because they're finding the workload hard. But what are the symptoms? What do we need to be looking out for as parents if our teenagers are in danger of falling through the cracks in class? Well, here are some. The first one, and this is one that your teacher will probably point out to you, is the lack of participation. And these are all really important bullet points that you can turn into questions to ask your teacher as well at parent-teacher interviews, or if you do have concerns about your child and you want to ring up your teacher and have a quick chat over the phone or go in and see them, then find out about their participation in class. Because if they really raise their hand to answer questions, or if they don't contribute to class discussions, then that could be a symptom of a teen not being fully engaged in class, because they're either struggling and they're really bored because they're finding the class hard, or they're bored because they're finding the class easy and they're not being challenged, so they're switching off. It can go both ways. Another thing to look out for is their decline in academic performance. They're getting lower grades than usual, or they're handing in incomplete or poorly done assignments. And as parents, you need to know about it. Another one is frequent absences or lateness. They're regularly missing classes, or they arrive late to class often, and their arriving late to class might not be passed on to the parent. So you need to check with your teenager's teacher that they are arriving to class on time. They might be easily distracted or inattentive. So do they daydream or seem lost during lessons? Or are they frequently checking phones if phones are allowed in class? Or engages in off-task behaviours? I mean, that's an obvious one in itself, that they are not being fully engaged in class, but we need to understand why. Is it because the content is too hard or too easy? It can go in either direction. We also need to look at their enthusiasm levels, and obviously teenagers aren't overly enthusiastic with course subjects like English, but if they're showing little interest in classroom activities, more so than usual, or they appear bored or disinterested, then we need to check that they are being stimulated enough. If there's behavioural issues, are they disrupting the class? Are they showing negative attitudes towards the teachers and their peers in class? Then sometimes it comes down to the fact that they are not being challenged enough. So as parents, you can be asking, what other support material can you be doing at home with them? And then that leads on to social withdrawal. Are they avoiding group work or social interaction with classmates? Are they appearing isolated or disengaged during collaborative activities? That's a big warning sign. And I think that if it gets to that level, then you really do need to explore that in a more serious context. And I definitely would be wanting to get to the bottom of that quickly. And your teacher will provide support and direction if that is happening in class. So you really do need to find out quickly if that's happening. And then there's also the physical symptoms. Are they complaining of headaches, stomach aches, or other ailments to avoid school? Or are they showing signs of stress or anxiety related to school? It could be because there's a particular subject or a particular class that they are trying to avoid. So once again, be asking those questions very quickly with your teenagers' teachers. If any of those sound familiar, then these are some strategies that you can look at to counteract the lack of engagement. The first one, the main one is establish the open communication. Talk to your teen about their day and their feelings towards school. Use some of those questions that we talked about earlier in this webinar, and they're in the workbook that you can download from the Parents Lounge if you haven't had a chance to write them down, and encourage them to express any concerns or difficulties they are facing. And once again, the questions to prompt this are in the workbook. You can create a structured study environment. So set up a dedicated, quiet space for studying. Make it really, make it really relaxed. Ensure that they've got good ventilation in there, good lighting, good seating. It's nice and quiet. They can put on some relaxing music if they study better with music on in the background, or you can light a scented candle or have some sort of fragrance, whatever your teenager needs to be able to study without distractions, then go for it. And ensure that they have all the necessary materials and resources. They've got their books there, they've got a desk, they've got a good reading lamp. If they need extra help with a particular subject, then you're able to have those extra resources on hand, especially with core subjects like English or maths, science. And then monitor and support their homework. So help them create a homework schedule if they are struggling with getting their homework complete, and check in regularly to see if they need help with assignments. Another really good way is to encourage extracurricular activities, because that's really good for emotional well-being and helps them switch off from the stresses of academic study. So help them find and participate in clubs, sports, or other activities they are passionate about, and promote involvement in activities that can boost their confidence and their social skills, because it's not always about academics. There's more to life than just the next project at school. Remember to collaborate with their teachers. Remember to keep that two-way communication open and supportive. So maintain regular contact with their teachers to monitor their progress and to address concerns. And attend the parent-teacher conferences and school events prepared. So come prepared with a set of questions that you can ask your teacher, your teenager's teacher, so that if time is limited, you can get straight to the point. And promote a healthy lifestyle. Ensure they get adequate sleep, nutrition, and physical activity, and encourage relaxation techniques to manage their stress. And mindfulness techniques are such an important part of your parenting toolkit to have, even if it's just deep breathing, encouraging some deep breaths in and out for a few minutes. It's just such an important way to de-stress and to regulate concerns or anxieties that teenagers might feel over a test or a study or an exam coming up. And that leads us to emotional support. How do we continue to encourage mindfulness techniques at home? Well, encouragement is the first one. Provide emotional support and encouragement, especially during setbacks or challenges. You want your teenagers to know that you are on their side first and foremost. So even if the news is disappointing about their behaviour at school or about their academic results, then approach it from a point of view of, well, how can we support you to improve? What can we do? What resources do you need to be able to get that support? Look at their stress management. Help your teenager to develop stress management techniques like the mindfulness that I mentioned previously, or relaxation exercises. Get out and do some exercise, or participate in a hobby that takes their mind off the stress that they're facing for that moment in time. Really support them during those stressful points in high school where they have exams or they have projects. And then also look at a growth mindset, because we want to foster a growth mindset by reinforcing that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Unlocking our teenagers' potential requires not only support and encouragement, but also meaningful challenges that push their boundaries. This is another important pillar, if you like, for the classic high school teacher, is that only when we challenge ourselves, and it doesn't have to be academically, it can be emotionally, it can be physically, it can be creatively, but by challenging ourselves, that is where potential thrives. And if we model that to our teenagers, if we can unlock our teenagers' potential through meaningful challenges, then they are going to succeed, not just in school, but in life. And we are equipping them with life skills to be able to succeed. If they understand that self-reflection and the importance of being challenged, whether it's in school or out of school, we know that they are going to move on past school into the future life with so much more of an open mind and the ability to think critically. And English class at school is one of the most important subjects for being able to teach teenagers these life skills. And I think that English comes down to, we break it into three core pillars of reading, writing, and oral. And that's how we communicate in life. It's our form of expression, it's our form of communication. Writing is how we express ourselves, it's how we organize our thoughts on paper, it's how we pass on meaning to other people, whether it's through emails or through opinions on social media or film scripts or whatever the medium is. Writing is our most basic form of expression. And so in English, it's how we measure performance. It's how we measure whether or not our teenagers are able to understand the world around them, express themselves within the world around them, and communicate with others in the world around them. But our teenagers struggle with writing quite often because they struggle with how to organize their thoughts on the page and they struggle with how to communicate effectively where they understand the question and they understand how to reflect on the question effectively. It can be hard. Quite often when parents would come to me and ask me what ways can they support their teenagers at home? What resources can we give them because they are falling through the cracks in English class or they're not being challenged enough in English class. We think they could be better. We think that they've got the right ideas, but they're just not able to structure them properly on the page. And it's really affecting their ability to progress in class. What can we do at home? We've spent money on expensive tutors, or our teenagers hate having to go to after school classes. What can we do? So I've developed a strategy that can help your teenagers thrive in English class and really challenge them above and beyond their potential, as well as picking up the students that might be falling through the cracks. And as parents, you just don't know what you can do at home to help them. I've got you, I've got your back. And I've developed the Essay Clinic, which is an opportunity for students to elevate their critical thinking and their writing skills, setting them on a path to a future where they can think for themselves. That is the most important part in English. They can think for themselves. If your teenager can master a literary essay, they can master any other type of essay in school because a literary essay will teach them the structure, will teach them how to arrange their thoughts on the page, and will teach them the flow of how they need to craft a beginning, a body, and a conclusion. So your teen will discover how to actually improve their literary essay writing skills, create compelling arguments, and start seeing results within 90 days. In fact, they'll start seeing results instantly because the essay clinic will break down how to write an essay into really easy bite-sized pieces. And so they will be learning right from day one, but we do it in a really fun, approachable way. It's a little bit of an adventure and it's a little bit of a party. It's my own unique way of teaching essay writing that I have been teaching students for decades, and they love it. So I think that this is the best of both worlds. It's going to capture the attention of the teenagers that are falling through the cracks in class, and it's going to capture the attention of the students that want a little bit more of a challenge and they enjoy the adventure that comes with the essay clinic. You'll see what I mean. Let me show you. By enrolling in the essay clinic, I'm going to help your teenager address several key challenges in writing a literary essay with my unique essay system. It's both a party and an adventure all rolled into one stimulating course. This will help your teen if they are a student who is struggling to write an essay in English literature class, especially if they are sitting exams for the first time, no matter where they are based in the world. This applies to all curriculums in all countries. If your teenager is in an English literature class and they are studying and reading books, poetry, or short stories or film, and they have to write essays, then this will apply to them because this is a foundational course for ages 13 and upwards. So it's perfect for teenagers that are coming into those first year of serious exams and they need some extra help in organizing their thoughts on the page. They don't understand or they struggle with being able to go deep into analysis in a paragraph, or they are struggling with their thesis statement in an introduction paragraph, or they're struggling with the way that they are editing and proofreading their essays. All of that we go into at the essay clinic. And here's how. I teach the basics of essay writing. So your teenager will gain a solid foundation in crafting essays tailored specifically for literary response exams. So they are the exams where they have to read a book, they've got to study the book, and then they've got to write about the themes or the characters or the setting, all of those important things in English class. That's a literary essay. They need to be able to write one. I'll also teach how to understand a thesis statement. So I'll teach your teenager what a thesis statement is, and then how to create a strong, clear, central argument for their essays. I'll teach them how to understand the general structure of an essay, making their writing clear and organized. Their teachers are going to love it. They're going to wonder what they've been doing at home. I'm going to teach your teenager how to construct effective paragraphs. And your teens will develop the skill, and your teenager will develop the skill to build coherent and persuasive paragraphs that support their thesis statement. So important with a literary essay. I've also got some versatile lines, some sentences they can use that they can use in any exam situation. Your teenager will gain the confidence to write essays independently without relying on AI or other tools. This is the jewel in your parents' toolkit for how to support your teenagers in English class. If they are struggling with essay writing, if they are getting D's or C's, or even B's and you think they're capable of A's, then this is what they need. Tutors can be expensive. They can be $80, $100 an hour. Your teenagers are busy. They've got after school commitments that they really don't have the time to be able to go to after school classes to do extra English. This toolkit, the essay clinic, they will have for years to come. You will be able to refer to the essay clinic every time they have a test or an exam to study for coming up. They can brush up on their writing skills using the essay clinic. It is yours for life. And I normally offer this at $997 because it is an extensive digital course. There are modules, there are lessons, there are workbooks, there are worksheets, there are videos, there is all sorts with the Essay Clinic. It is a highly comprehensive course. Will have what they will be able to refer to throughout their high school life. I want you to imagine for a moment that your teenager in class, in school, begins to improve their academic performance. They consistently receive higher grades on their essays and English assignments. But not only that, they begin to develop clear, concise, and compelling writing abilities that will serve them throughout their academic and professional lives. We're talking about skills that don't just end at high school level. We're talking about developing skills, written communication skills that they can use later in life. I want you to imagine their confidence levels. Your teenager is beginning to feel more confident in their writing, and that has a knock-on effect to their overall academic abilities, which means there's a reduction in anxiety around schoolwork, around homework, around projects, around exams and tests, around the future of what their high school life is going to look like. And I want you to imagine that your teenager begins to analyze texts deeply. Now, this means that they begin to think critically, and that means that they can begin to articulate their thoughts effectively. That has a knock-on effect in all areas of their communication, with you, with their friends, in relationships, in the workforce. The opportunities are endless for your teenager once they understand how to articulate their thoughts and how to think critically. It all stems from essay writing. And finally, I want you to imagine that your teenager becomes more self-reliant and proactive in their studies, building a strong foundation for future success. They take accountability for their own work. They take pride in their own work. They're beginning to see the results in class and beyond. And all you have to do to achieve these goals is follow the steps. Because with the Essay Clinic, here's what I'll help your teenager master. I'll help them with effective essay structuring. We're going to look at how to organize an essay in a clear and logical manner. I'm going to teach them some compelling writing techniques. They're going to learn how to write with clarity, precision, and persuasiveness. They're also going to learn critical analysis. So they're going to learn how to analyze texts deeply and thoughtfully. And finally, we're going to look at time management. Your teenager will be able to improve the ability to manage their own time and meet those deadlines, meet those homework assignment deadlines. Think about it. In an exam situation, they have a very limited time to produce excellent quality essays, normally 3 or 4 essays in a go. This is your teenager's secret weapon. The Essay Clinic will teach them how to write effectively and efficiently. We cover a lot. We go deep in the Essay Clinic. We really get to the bottom of what a literary analysis essay is and how to write one. We have 3 modules. In Module 1, it's all about understanding what a literary essay is, learning how to plan a literary essay, how to understand the essay question, how to brainstorm their ideas, what type of evidence to collect, how to arrange their thoughts on paper. We go into all of that in Module 1, and we start with a great party vibe. This is all about keeping essay writing fresh and fun for teenagers, because it can get a little dry from time to time. Then in Modules 2 and 3, we move on to writing our essays. We look at different writing frameworks, depending on your teenager's ability. Some teenagers will understand it quicker than others, so we cater for a range of needs and learning styles. We have an adventure vibe going with a treasure map. We look at introductions, including thesis statements, the body paragraphs and conclusion paragraphs. We have user-friendly workbooks for every single video. And then we move on to the finishing touches, adding sparkle to your essays, the proofreading, the rewriting, the redrafting, being able to understand feedback, being able to receive feedback, being able to improve your essay to a point where you know you're happy with it and it's going to get top marks. I like to call it the essay party glam up. It is the fun part. We cover so much. It is the A to Z of literary essay writing for English class. If you are ages 13 upwards, then this is going to be perfect for you. Even if you're at senior level, ages 17, 18, and you're studying for those final exams, the Essay Clinic is great because it's going to give you the foundation and the bones of what you need to include with literary essay writing, especially for those teenagers that never quite got it right the first time round. And to all my new students who have signed up, welcome. You have taken a huge leap, and I am so excited for you. Your teenager is going to find this next chapter life-changing. I promise you that. They are going to feel so much more confident and reassured with their own writing skills in English class. We will help your family do things the right way, because sometimes future students wait to join and unfortunately they end up spinning their wheels. We want you to see results right away. We want your teenager to see results right away, which means when you purchase the Essay Clinic, you can start immediately. There's no waiting for the enrollment to start in a week or two's time. You can start today. You might be thinking, this sounds amazing, but my teen already has amazing teachers at school for free. Well, that's cool, but is that teacher stepping outside the curriculum to actually teach the life skills our teens need? And how busy is your teacher? Because I know that teachers teach multiple classes. They have got a huge amount of students that they are responsible for week in, week out. And yes, they might be teaching essay writing skills in class and then setting an essay for homework, but how long until your teenager gets that essay back from their teacher marked? How long does it take for your teacher to do a whole class worth of marking? And how much extra time after school is your teacher devoting to every single individual student? Because I know, take it from me, I have been a teacher, that we just simply don't have enough time to give as much attention as is required to every single student above and beyond what is allocated in class time. This is why the Essay Clinic fills that gap. It fills that point in time where your teenager needs to keep the scaffolding going with their writing, with their literary essays, and they don't need to wait for their teacher. They can work quietly on their essays at home and then submit them to their teacher when they're feeling confident and ready to. Now, you might be thinking, I would sign my teenager up, but I need to do, or my teenager needs to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G first, or I need to see interest first, or I need another reason why first. If you are in that situation where you're on the fence, but you're not sure, and you can think of a whole lot of reasons why it might not work, I want you to think about it this way. Our families who wait end up having to learn these skills later on in life anyway, but after a whole lot of trial and error. So you might as well save a little time and a little heartache and jump to the front of the queue now, because we will help your family with communication, strategic thinking, how to put your best foot forward, and so much more. There are so many transferable skills that come from understanding how to write properly, how to express your opinions on the page coherently. It affects all other areas of communication in your teenager's life. verbal communication, their ability to express themselves orally, their ability to listen to instructions, to listen to opinions, to be able to consider what other people are saying. There are so many different areas that essay writing will support your teenager with their own mental and cognitive development. Or you might be thinking, I want to join, but I'm not sure if my family has enough time. I know, I get it. We are all time poor. We're all time precious. But here's the cool thing. When you have access to the essay clinic, you really only need 1 to 2 hours to implement. And the great thing with the essay clinic is that your team can do it around their schedule when it fits in with them. We show you exactly what your team needs to do to revitalize motivation and communicate with the wider world. And for the first time ever, you will actually start seeing your teens thrive and explore the world with a new curiosity not seen before. No matter what writing style your teenager is learning at school, whether it's petal or peel or the hamburger method, there are so many different ways of teaching essay writing at school, but the essay clinic will complement all of those. The essay clinic is designed to fit in with whatever the writing style is that your teenager is being taught at school, because we go deeper and we go more extensive. So everything that they are covering at school, we cover in the essay clinic, and then we go a step beyond that. Your teenager is in really good hands. So if you weren't able to join today, no problems. There is so much free content that I offer. Go and subscribe to my Instagram page. You'll see a whole pile of freebies over there. And you can grab the content I post there for free. My handle is @theclassic-high-school-teacher. And to all my new families that have just signed up, welcome. I want to personally thank you and welcome you. And I can't wait to see how you go inside the essay clinic. You're going to have so much fun. It has been a pleasure serving you with this training, and I hope to see you again real soon. Bye for now.